Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial here on my channel. And in this one I'm going to show you a few tips and guidelines on how to model your vehicle for BeamNG.drive. You might know that I've already done a video like this and I'm now redoing it simply because the old video was bad. That's just how it is. It was very bad actually. Especially the 3D model I showed in that video was pretty horrendous, and yeah, it just wasn't correct what I said in that video, and it's now obviously taken down, and I'm now doing this again and hopefully improving on what I said in that previous video. Alright, we are now sticking to the official content because, well, the official content is very much the goal or the standard you should have when modeling. Make it look similar to that and orient on yourself, on the official content. And I also have the 3D model for the scintilla. The some Italians are gonna murder me, but yeah, on that Italian car, and I'm going to show you a few things on this model. First thing would be the polygon density. In BeamNG there's a special kind of limit to your polygon density, and that is because in BeamNG every time the physics of the game is updated, every single position of every single vertex needs to be updated as well, so the actual 3D meshes correlate to what's happening with the J-beam, which is done using the flex bodies. And yeah, so that's why there is a special limit on polygon count and polygon density. So it might not be the best idea to just straight up import any high poly count model you can find, because that will certainly have some performance issues. I mean, there's no other way than just to show you. This is what the usual polygon density looks like. On the newer cars it's a little bit denser because obviously performance has been getting better on new computers. So yeah, the new models have a few more or a little bit denser meshes, but yeah, this is around what you should be looking for. Also, a simple trick to save on polygons is, probably you should know that if you're familiar with modeling, is just normal maps. Obviously normal maps are used to create fake detail, and put this around. There you go. You can see on the underside of this car there are some structures in here and those bolts and bolt holes, which you cannot see at all in here because those are made simply using normal maps. And especially on the underside of a car, that's a very prevalent use case, because there's not much detail directly needed here in terms of the actual mesh. You can fake that detail with a normal map. For example, all of the bumps, you can see all the small little details, all the bolts you can see here are made using normal maps. You can see even this structure right here on top of this connection it is on the engine mount is used as made using a normal map. Okay, that's it mostly for polygon density. Now the next thing, which was pretty much the biggest problem with my previous video, was the polyflow. And polyflow is how those polygons that you have are arranged, and actually also what kind of shape they have. And first of all, A good polyflow is needed to have good reflections, I mean, which you can see obviously here, and good shading, so good nice shadows, and also for deformation. If you have bad polyflow, it might lead to weird deformations when the car is damaged. And it can also lead to spiking, where you can see spikes coming out of the 3D model when it's heavily deformed. You can see that on some mods that just use imported models. So, and for polyflow, you should keep in mind that you should mostly work with rectangles and not any other n-gon, because rectangles, well, they just give you the best shading. In some cases you can use triangles at some points. It's not really a must that you use rectangles, but mostly rectangles and triangles in some situations are the way to go. The issue with these other n-gons is just that they can create a weird shading. Yeah, that's the problem with them. Although triangles aren't as bad as the other ones, and it depends on the situation. I mean, you can see if the shading is bad. Also, another thing is with good polyflow is that all of these should be, all of the polygons should be spaced evenly. So you can see right here, the polygons are almost all very much the same size, especially in this middle part right here. And there's not much size difference between them, which is also contributes to a good polyflow. I'm always talking about rectangles and things, and I mean, you can clearly see that those are triangles right here. And yes, that's true. And that is simply because after we export a 3D model from Blender, it will export into the Collada file format, and that uses all triangulated polygons. So every rectangle that you have will be split in half and turned into a triangle, and that's the reason why it's still good to go for rectangles and not anything with a higher vertex count on a single polygon, is because rectangles are very easy to split into triangles, and it's very predictable how they will be cut, and therefore there won't be many shading issues with them. Okay, now we've got that out of the way, because it seems kind of weird for me to always say you need rectangles and faces with 4 sides. Yeah, that's the reason. Alright, the next one is rather simple. It's the material. Oh, had a bit of a lag there. The next one is the materials. Pretty straightforward, I believe. You have one material that's called your main material. You can see it right here. It's just your internal name, then underscore and main, and this will be assigned to almost everything. There are some special exceptions. I mean, for example, right here you can see we have the main carbon. If we go ahead and if you put display, and then oh yeah, there you can see those are all the parts made of carbon fiber, so they get a different material, and you just make everything the same material that you can group together under some kind of pattern. The main material is pretty simple. It's all the body panels, it's all the structural stuff. Yeah, you can see it right there. And for some cases, for example, the engine usually has its own material. I mean, always. I mean, the engine always has its own material. Glass has its own material. You can see all of these have their own materials. And then there are some special cases. For example, in this case, we have the external carbon. And I think, yeah, the grill. There's also grill material right there. And also every single light. If we that, see, every single light has its own material, because those actually need to change. The materials of the lights actually have to change. I mean, you can show you that. Every time that a light turns on or off, or just changes intensity or whatever, means that its material has changed. So we give individual materials to lights. Alright, now for the probably simplest thing on this list is just part separations. It's pretty straightforward. Every part on your vehicle or that could separate, or actually is just physically one part, should be one 3D object. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Your door is different object from your fender and from your chassis and all of that, simply because if we rip off the door, in this case, it obviously, in this case, it separates nicely from the frame or from the chassis. But if we had these two joined together, if we had the body and the door together, that would mean that BeamNG tries to keep the doesn't matter, but would mean that BeamNG would try to deform door and body at the same time, and you would get like really weird stretching, especially with things that are connected together. You would get stretching of the 3D model from places that it shouldn't be. So simple, just everything that is its own separate object in the real world is its own separate 3D object. Alright. And for the naming convention is again pretty simple. It's just your the internal name out of whatever you're doing, and then a description for it, a name for it. I mean, you can see it right here. Yeah, pretty simple stuff for that. Another thing is the part origins, or the origins of your 3D object. They should always be at 0, 0, 0. You can see that's the orange dot right there. See, for every single object, and you can click a lot of things, but you can see it stays the same right in the middle. And that is because if it wasn't there, it was somewhere else, we would get that that certain object shifted wherever the origin is. So we should keep it at 0, 0, so it doesn't shift around in BeamNG. Though that only applies to flex bodies, since props, like for example the steering wheel, the difference between flex body and steering wheel is a flex body gets deformed by the underlying structure from the J-beam, and a prop is something that is animated or changed by a certain function. For example, pretty much the simplest thing is the steering wheel, and that's why it has its origin right there, and this is the point where the steering wheel rotates around. You can also see, there you go. You can see that the rotation is also not 0. I mean, if we put this at 0, there you go. For example, right here, the steering wheel is rotated around the Z axis or the Z axis or whatever, and to get it to actually rotate around this, we're rotating around the Z axis, so right here, but to get it to actually stay in this orientation, we need to rotate it by, in this case, minus 74.5 degrees. So now the Z-axis actually goes right through the steering column where it should rotate around. If we go to local and then rotate around the Z-axis, you can see it now rotates right around where it should. Another trick you can use in Blender, well, not really a trick, just a method. You can go to this drop down where it says viewport shading and then change your lighting from studio to matte cap, and then under this selection you can choose this right here, and it just basically makes you see how the shading is a lot better. It just makes yeah, the shading a little bit more apparent, easier to see, and it's way easier to spot any problems with your shading in this yeah, matte cap mode. Another thing you can use for the shading is something called the special modifier. I'm going to open up my own mod, 3D model, and that is, first of all, it's the auto smooth feature. It's under the object data properties, and then under normals you click auto smooth and then choose an angle somewhere like 50 or 60 degrees, and it will smooth every angle that is below that. And then to even further improve this, you can use the so-called weighted normal modifier. You can see this is how it just loops with the auto smooth. It's alright, but it's not as good as it could be. So we go add modifier, then weighted normal, and yeah, the 50 is already a good yeah, good weight. If you want it, for example, right here, you can see those edges are, those corners are rounded. If you would turn on keep sharp, it would mean that any angle that is above this 60 degrees will not get smooth anymore. So if you keep increasing this angle, you can see now it's getting smooth again. And just go back to 60. Oh, that's nice. And basically what the weighted normal modifier does, it takes a face and it changes its normal, which is just basically the direction the face is pointing in, and adjusts it according to the surrounding faces. And that's how you get a lot better shading. And yeah, I believe something that you should use, because it just makes your model look a lot better without too much effort. And there's also another thing you can do for spacing your vertices. Right, for spacing your vertices. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, for example, let's say I wanted these four lines to be spaced evenly from each other, which they, you know, they almost are. But to get that perfect, we need to first get ourselves an add-on. So go to Blender Preference, then Add-ons, and then Loop Tools. Just go ahead and check that box. Go ahead and save if you don't have autosave on. And then if we select, okay, if you now select all of those going along here, we can press W, and then there will be a Loop Tools right up here, and then we can, wait, where is it? There's the space. Yeah. Tool, and you can see, there's not too much of a difference, but you can see now those are perfectly spaced out, and yeah, the space between these is all the same, and it just helps you make those faces be nice together with the same spacing. You might see that we have different sized polygons right here, and that is because on this very flat surface we don't need that much polygons, that much information, and we'd rather spend this on this curved section, where obviously we need more faces to make it appear actually round. So that's why there is a difference in density right here. And now for the very last thing you would want to do with your 3D model is obviously export it. To do that, we simply just select anything that you actually want to export from your from your project. Then go to File, Export, Collada, and then choose Selection Only, because you don't want to export lights and things like that. Don't copy all the textures, because that's done later or differently, separately. Apply all modifiers under geometry, so that we will actually get the, for example, the mirror modifier. You can see that all of these are actually using the mirror modifier, obviously because it's a symmetrical shape, so the mirror modifiers is easy to use there. Okay, let me get a select again. Wait, close the export tab, doesn't matter. Go to Export Collada, Selection Only, don't copy textures, apply modifiers. So you'll first get the something like mirrors, and you'll also get, more importantly, get the weighted normals, which is making the shading better. And then just go ahead, press export, and although I haven't copied this into the mod files yet, but I haven't changed the 3D model, so this is what results out of this in the game. And yeah, you can see those sharp edges right here that aren't rounded or changed by the weighted normals modifier, because I have the keep sharp option on. But then right here in the front you can see that this is actually smoothed by it. And for example, right here you can still see a few imperfections. There are some, it's not perfectly shaded on here. There are some spots that's just ever so slightly brighter. Obviously right in the reflections it's harder to see, although even this model isn't perfect, obviously. Oh yeah, keep looking at the official content. The devs of BeamNG obviously know what's best for their own game. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't, and I see you guys again in the next video.